you, Chair. I have heard Mr. Timmermans extensively dwell on how terrible it is that some problems in this society are attributed to asylum seekers. Just now there was a brief mention of the lack of safety for women in this society. Just a few weeks ago, the Netherlands was tragically shaken by a truly horrific murder of a young minor Dutch girl who was brutally attacked on her way home and sadly never made it back. It has since become clear that the suspect in this horrific murder is an asylum seeker. Mr. Timmermans then placed the blame for the problem on all men in Dutch society. Supposedly we have a men's problem. But as I said, it is an asylum seeker who is suspected of this. And it's not an isolated incident because people from these countries are sometimes up to 20 times more likely to be suspected of these crimes. So my question is actually, what does Mr. Timmermans consider more important? The safety of these people from abroad or the safety of Dutch women?
If only the world were that black and white. Femicide is a huge problem in our society, and the perpetrators are usually the partners, spouses, ex-partners, sometimes fathers, sometimes brothers of the victims. So let's not narrow the problem down now to just one person from, I believe, West Africa. The figures that Mr. Wild has also mentioned this morning are shocking. And as a government, we will have to take action against this. That's what we have the police and the justice system for. But accusing entire population groups or whole categories of people, in this case asylum seekers, does not, in my view, contribute to solving the problems in our society. I've never really seen forums stand on our side. I'm just checking with my colleagues to be sure when it comes to combating femicides. On the contrary, there is a huge macho culture within your movement. We can see that in all matters. That's why it's so encouraging that the party leader of that party is now a woman. Maybe that can also help to curb that macho culture a bit. But if you are truly serious about the safety of girls and women in the Netherlands, then I would say work together with us. And the VVD is really taking a leading position here as well. Work together with us and other parties in this House to tackle the causes of femicide. And that also includes taking strict action, but that's part of it too. And I say this as the father of 2 girls and 2 boys. That's part of it as well. Raising our children well, both the boys and the girls.
Yes, Chair. I think the fact that there is a female party leader and parliamentary group chair standing here proves exactly that the macho culture Mr. Timmermans refers to doesn't exist at all. But that's just an aside. There isn't a woman my age who doesn't sometimes think about how she's going to get home late at night. There isn't a single friend in my circle who doesn't think 3 times about whether she should take her bike. Half of Dutch women my age take a different route when cycling in their own neighborhood because they don't feel safe. And of course, even if we were to introduce an asylum curb now, or if there were no asylum seekers here, the problem wouldn't just disappear. But the fact remains that these people, this group, are heavily overrepresented when it comes to committing sexual offenses. So once again, my question to Mr. Timmermans, in the end, it's a choice. We can choose to allow these people to come here. Then it's just a matter of calculation that this problem will occur more often, that more Dutch girls will become victims of it here. Or we can choose not to let them in and protect our own girls. And I ask you again, what is your priority?
I have very strong objections to reducing reality to such a dichotomous choice, which isn't really a dichotomous choice at all. I've had many conversations with my mother about the time when she was young, in the early and mid-1950s. My mother had to deal a lot with behavior from men that we all now consider unacceptable. But it wasn't talked about. You just had to endure it. My mother, even as a young girl, she started working at a very young age, had all kinds of tactics. How she should ride her bike, what time she should ride, what she could and couldn't wear, and so on. Unfortunately, this is a recognizable pattern for generations of women, right up to my own daughters. My sons never wonder how they should behave at night when they go out. My daughters are always thinking about it. And my mother experienced this back when there were no asylum seekers yet. When almost everyone in this country was still white, it was white guys who did that, not other people. This is a broader problem than just asylum seekers. But that being said, if someone behaves so badly in our country, who has no right to stay here, then as far as I'm concerned, but that's up to the judge. A long time in prison and then out of the country. That's what I would like to achieve. But don't reduce this issue to just asylum seekers being the ones who do this. It would be to your credit if you acknowledge that this is a very large and deeply rooted social problem. one that we still haven't eradicated, but fortunately a majority in Parliament is working hard on it. To eradicate it once and for all.
Yes, Chair, Mr. Timmermans is misquoting me. I have acknowledged that Dutch men also do these kinds of horrible things. But I explicitly added that asylum seekers, people from specific groups of countries, are heavily overrepresented, and that it's simply a matter of calculation that if you choose, and Mr. Timmermans does, if you choose to let these people come here, then Dutch women are at a much greater risk of becoming victims of this problem. And this is not a men's problem. Well, it is a men's problem, but that's because of men like Mr. Timmermans.
The vile thing that's being said here, and which I really want to distance myself from, is as if we are choosing to bring people here who will then behave in such a way. As if we are choosing, and the vile claim for years that you have an open door policy and things like that, that vilification is not fair. To our collective responsibility to do something about this together, and much tougher action will need to be taken against this. We will also need to better equip the police and judiciary to handle this. That's why we also want more funding for the police and judiciary to be able to address this issue. But let's not reduce this problem to a single challenge. Unfortunately, the challenge is much bigger than that. And I do not deny that in the crime statistics, certain people who have applied for asylum or are here as refugees are overrepresented. That is something that concerns all of us, and we will all need to develop very specific policies for it.